We're proud to welcome you to the Exceptional Advisor podcast series, brought to you by the Investments and Wealth Institute. This series aims to help you to better serve your clients, differentiate yourself from the competition, and enhance your ability to communicate those differences. Hi, I'm your host, Bob Powell. My guest today is John Bowen. He's the president and founder of CEG Worldwide and also the president and founder of CEG Insight. John, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure and the first time with you, and I'm excited about it and sharing some of the most powerful research we've had.
Yeah, so we've known each other for a long time, but there might be some people who are listening who aren't familiar with you and your background. Give us a brief overview.
Well, as you mentioned, I am the founder and CEO of two companies, one CEG Worldwide, which is all about really helping top financial advisors accelerate their success even more. And then the research side, I have a company called CEG Insights, where we study wealth at every level, as well as best practices of advisors. And what we're doing is combining the empirical research with applied experience. And the reason I've done all this is, Bob, you might relate to this too, is I found myself as an advisor. Now, this would have been over 20 years ago. I was an advisor for 26 years, and I was in an entrepreneurial fog. And I really wanted somebody to just, give me the game plan on how to do this stuff. And I felt like I had to always do it. And so I had two partners. I was CEO of the firm, and we built it up to a little over $2 billion in 1998. We were the largest independent advisor at Schwab. And that got us a lot of offers. We ended up selling it for 16 times earnings. Quite honestly, I wouldn't have done it. But my two partners, I learned that it's important to have the majority. I had the largest interest, but not the majority. So it was a great liquidity event. And that's where really from there, I've continued on setting up these companies to really understand what works best now for a financial advisor, both top and those aspiring to be top.
Yeah. So I know we're recording this both as a podcast for our listeners who are audio only, but we're also recording it for YouTube, where you'll be sharing some slides. And I just want to make mention to anyone who's listening on the audio side that you can go to YouTube to watch the video podcast and see the slides, but we'll also make available the present part of the presentation.
What we're going to do is we have a report that's a summary for financial advisors, and everything I'm going to talk about today and more, Bob, is in the report called the Dream Team Effect. And we'll give it'll look like this, and we'll go ahead and make it available for a download in a link, a relatively short link, and make sure to go get it, because once you hear what we're going to talk about, I mean, just where everybody's always talking about getting more clients or doing this or doing that. One of the things as we scale up, it's so important to have the right team. And it makes, for most advisors, this is probably the most important decision they're ever going to make.
Yeah. So in the Dream Team Effect study, you came up with 7 thought-provoking questions that we should be discussing. Start with the critical insight from the study, and that underscores this crucial role of teamwork.
Yeah, one of the things that I was very interested, because as I mentioned, that entrepreneurial fog, I really struggled in the beginning as a team, and one of the things is you're going as a financial advisor, and you start having success. You can't do it on your own, even with today's technology. So you have to hire in individuals, and boy, that's a challenge. And what our research, I'm going to put it up, and again, this will be on for those of you who are going to end up going to it. Actually, let me just do it from the slide itself, or on the page. We're going to have it on, it's right in the beginning on page 6. And well, actually, let me do it here first. And so on the slide, one of the things we asked is, what's the relative success you're thinking? And one of the things that I found very, very quickly that was interesting was this whole concept that, really only 8.1% of the advisors felt they had a true dream team. And if you think about that, Bob, I mean, I was on a ski trip when I got this research, and I was with 16 top financial advisors. And I thought they were going to question the numbers. And they immediately go, well, I got a lot of company. Nobody questioned it at all because people, we've struggled with this. And when we look at different levels, and I'm going to give some segmentation in a bit, but we found that 42.9%. They said they had high performing individuals, but they really weren't working together. And negative performance, 42.9 reported that they had actually had lost assets under management or revenue due to a team member. So the consequences of having a bad team is huge. And what we want to do is really make sure that we're structured in a way that we're going to be able to accomplish the goals, really get the results for the clients, for the team as well, and then for yourself.
Yeah. Before I move on, I'm sort of curious about this notion of genuine cohesion. Like, is there a definition of it? What does that look like?
Well, the big thing at a higher level, the highest level we'll talk about is a concept called co-elevation.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I'm looking for in a team, and we found this of the most successful teams. This is a study of 899 very successful financial advisors. And what we found was this top group, they were co-elevated. So not only had they brought a team together that was working, the classic collaboration, they're playing well together, but they're actually committed to each other's success. And that's a much higher level type thing. And, if somebody does something wrong, you're going to go ahead and share with them. You're going to ask for permission. Hey, can we have a discussion on this? But, it'll be done in a way that we're helping them be even more successful. Or if they're not the right team member, we're going to help them, find new opportunities as well.
All right. Well, remind me to ask a follow-up question to that, but I want to dive into the key findings that underscore the importance of this teamwork and the effect of teamwork.
Well, yeah. And so one of the things that comes out of this is this whole concept of, what's the positive, impact that we can have when we're doing high performance teams. And let me go and, one of the things is teams, the vitality. 44% said, and you can see here, that it's crucial on attracting high net worth clients. I mean, this is a big deal. It'd be nice to be a believer that, one individual is a rainmaker, going to make the company really successful, scaling up. But anybody's working with them is going to look and judge it by the whole team. The second part, when we start going, it's moderately important. 85.7% of the respondents said, hey, having their team, they're going to be extremely or moderately important in bringing in new clients. And not, when we look at this, 95.2% find teams at least somewhat important on client acquisition. Okay, I don't know that I've ever seen where we've got a higher percentage, Bob, from the example that there is near consensus on things from financial advisors, having been one. That's a big number. So we recognize it's important, but only 8.1% say that they have the team that they want to be able to get the most benefit out of this.
Yeah. So there's, in my old days, in my former research company, we called it ARE, attract, retain, and expand. So that you talked about the attracting clients. What about retention? Is that important in the team world too?
Yeah, really retention is so important. So we were talking about marketing. Let's go to retention. And with retention, what we found is nearly 50% indicate that's very significant. I mean, this is, again, if you've got a good business, what's happening is you're not doing the operational stuff. If you're the lead advisor, you've got a team. Well, they can very quickly, we've seen over and over again, that can be a major problem. And, the positive impact, 92.5% said, on client retention, 50% significant, 42% somewhat positive. This is where one of the things we want to recognize, if we're going to have long-term relationships with clients, what happens is we have to have really good to great team members that are capable of building those relationships, Bob.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you think about retention, generally, I would think in these high performing teams, retention must be pretty high.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting, I didn't put a slide, but it's in the study, so let me go grab it real quick. There's a lot of dysfunction out there, and it's worse than I thought. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do the podcast with you. I wanted, we really even haven't published this as we're recording it, we haven't published it to our corporate members in our research. But, I wanted to get this out as quickly as possible because we're going to not only talk about all the problems, opportunity problems, but we're going to talk about how you address it. But when we look at turnover, this is, annual turnover teams. I want to look at this, where we go 10% almost have 30% or more annual turnover. Then we start looking here, 21 to 30, 10 to 20. This would be the area that I think everybody should be in, only 1 out of 4.
Yeah.
And that's scary. That's you're building a team. You want to build this great dream team. You're going to invest time, energy, and money into it. And all of a sudden now we're doing that and they're leaving us. And, how can we really make that work is one of the key things that I want to talk about.
Yeah. Every sort of slide that you present creates another question in my head. And I think about retention and turnover. I think about, is it occurring at the administrative level, at the advisor level, at the customer service level?
All of the above.
Yeah.
All of the above. And that's where the challenge is that, and the thing that's really tough is this industry. And let me go to a concept that I want to talk about. I'm going to just put the image up.
Yeah.
Is this concept of accidental CEO.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I'm going to relate it to myself first. I did look to see who used it first. It's been used many times, but I couldn't find anybody to attribute it to. But the concept is that most financial advisors are accidental CEOs. And I know I got into the business. I wanted to do just a great job for my clients. I wanted them to make smart decisions about their money so they achieved everything that was important to them. And then I started having more and more success. And by the time we were at $2 billion, we had a lot of employees. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I was an accidental CEO. I didn't want to be a manager. I didn't even want to really be a leader. I wanted to be a financial advisor. And this is one of the things that I really want to ask everybody who's listening or viewing this on YouTube to really think about, okay, embrace that. That's okay. Now we can go ahead, given that, how can we frame it so we can build really a self-managing team, company that would allow us to accelerate and achieve everybody's goals?
Yeah. And I think about, as you're talking about the accidental CEO and the turnover rate, you were probably never trained as a HR manager in terms of hiring someone or finding the right skill set, or do they have the right knowledge and the right attitude and the right perspectives?
Well,
Will they fit in
even
here?
if you were at a major wirehouse, or a large independent broker dealer, or you have if you're an RIA, you got a regulatory group you're working with, you don't have them sitting in your office with you. And even when I ended up getting a scale in another business in between where I did have that person, and actually I had the department. We had 400 employees. You end up, you still have to reach out constantly. You're learning and all this. And how can we set this up? And particularly the thing that I became so big for me is a self-managing practice where everybody's committed to that collective success so that you don't have to be the manager of this.
Yeah.
And I want to point out one other thing, Bob, that I think is really important as we're setting the challenges up before the solution. This was a big surprise to me.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought it through, I don't think, but the role of transition planning, succession. I'm 68, so I like to think of it as sustainability. Great health. I plan on staying for a long time, as long as health is good. Love it. I'm passionate about helping my fellow entrepreneurs, financial advisors be even more successful. But one of the things we want to do is we got to look at our own practice. How do we future-proof it? And when we start looking at, this is where, to me, this was a number that jumped out. 43.4% of the advisors are planning on leaving in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Now, this is not just because there's a bunch of baby boomers like me. It's also because of the frustration out there. And when we look and go at the long term, more than 10 years from now, only 20.9% were in their mind sticking around for the decade, for sure.
Yeah.
And so we've got, uncertainty on the leadership side, who's going to be there. We've got team members who, they're critical for attraction and serving clients. We have this transition issue, and then we have leaders who don't want to lead. They're accidental CEOs. How can we deal with it is really, one of the big issues.
Yeah. I know we want to talk about how we can go from individual contributor to visionary leader of a high performing team, but one question that comes up, I've experienced this in my own career, is when you ask someone to contribute to the collective success of an enterprise, having a stake in the company can go a long way. Any thoughts about the relationship between high performing teams and the degree to which their employees have a stake in the business?
It's really interesting. For the most part, it's negative in financial advisor practices, because it creates a lot, unless everything else is already dealt with, because it creates conflicts and confusion, and I'm talking about equity stakes.
Yes.
So what we're looking at is that's usually how we try to keep people who really aren't totally bought in to at least stay. It's kind of a golden handcuff. One of the things I'm a big believer is people should stay because they want to. Yeah. And in today's world, autonomy has become so much bigger, and particularly in the younger generations. But even the baby boomers, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we want to think about before we try to solve it with comp, because the financial services industry, on average, we make a lot of money. Once you get it going right, it's easy to throw money at problems. What we want to do is solve the challenge and then really do it. And the biggest thing that's missing, Bob, from the situation is that people haven't, you really haven't provided the leadership. And we call it the everyone win process. Russ Allen Prince and I wrote a book during the pandemic called Everyone Wins, and it really did well. And it's a simple concept: is you take your self-interest, their self-interest, you find if there's alignment. If there's no alignment, they shouldn't be with you. But if there's alignment, then it's what we call enlightened self-interest. And one of the things, we've got to take time to create a vivid vision of where we're taking the firm. And then we need to be able to understand what our teammates want and how they can contribute and what they're going to want to contribute and how can they grow if they want to grow in this process.
Yeah.
We found once you do that, it just changes really the world, because now they're clear on whether they want to play with you. It should be an exciting future. And that's really where the big win comes in.
Yeah. So talk more about the accidental CEO and sort of what they need to do to maybe enhance their leadership skills, et cetera, et cetera. What leads to success?
What we really saw, and we ended up putting this, what we call the hierarchy of world-class team performance. And it's from dysfunction to dream team. And let me put it on so I can draw on it on this slide, just blow it up. And, you think unfortunately, there's a pretty good percentage of advisors here.
Yep.
And this is where chaotic. And certainly this is a group that has 30% plus turnover, all that stuff. And, it's working enough. And there's they reach the ceiling of fear, no clear path. Nobody really wants to work there, but it's profitable enough and they're going to grind it out. And this is usually, Bob, where the person leading it hates their life, but they're making too much money to kill it yet, type thing. The next group is a really common one. This is high performance individuals. And this is where, our industry attracts a lot of really successful people. And what we find here is they coexist. They're not really playing together, but they're working together kind of in silos, if you will. And all of us have experienced that. There's just talent and then there's enough people doing enough things that, stuff happens. And this is what most people coach to, is this concept of high performance teams, where you have a collaboration where you're working together. And we here at CG call that you reach the ceiling of good enough, and quite honestly, most advisors, when they get to that level, go, this is good enough, let's stop. And what we're suggesting, and 8.1% of the advisors in the study said, you know what? We've hit this dream team. We are working together with outstanding individuals. We're really, each teammate is actively helping each other excel while driving the practice forward to achieve that vision, the most important goals. And this is where the magic happens. So, the question then is, okay, how can we race up this hierarchy of world-class team performance faster and with less effort than we ever thought possible? And that's really what the balance of the research goes through.
A question that comes to mind, John, is as I think about the listener and the viewer of this, is when we talk about teams, are we talking about companies with 500 million in assets under management and 10 employees? Is there sort of a bottom, a bottom to this, where you can't
more than one person?
Yeah.
No, I mean, really, we broke it out. I can't remember. I don't have the corporate study, but we have all the different team structures and everything.
Right.
And I think we called it really creatively, the solo advisor was the one that, is the smallest team. And there's some successful small advisors, these solo advisors. And then it becomes what I would call a lifestyle boutique, which is great. I mean, you can do that in today's world. And then there are others that have, large enterprise and multi-billion-dollar practices. But in every single case, we've got to deal with, unless you're doing everything on your own, there is a team. And even if you're doing everything on your own, there's the internal team and the external team of other professional strategic partnerships you have. And you have to, it's really easy to be chaotic with them as well. Right. And what we want to do is create that co-elevation with both internal and external.
So in the case of the solo advisor, where you might have to have an outsourced CIO or an outsourced compliance department or outsourced whatever CRM, I don't know, right? I mean, you're still a team.
Yeah, no, I outsource a tremendous amount, Bob. And, and one of the things, we have a written vision statement for our companies. We share it with everyone. We get very clear what's in their self-interest, what's in our self-interest, what were expectations. And I can go on, the process we go through it. I'm going to share that. Actually, let me just put that
as you're talking about it, I'm thinking this has to be a mindful approach to actually make this right from
and this
reality.
Is the problem is what we typically do is we read articles, even books, where there's no framing. Yeah. One of the things about CG, we're big on mastering framing.
Yep.
And because, it's not that we just have to have really great teams and ideally dream teams, but we got to do everything else. And, this is where, the good enough hits in, and sometimes we don't get to the good enough ceiling. So how can we do that? Well, one of the things we're big on, and remember, we're always taking empirical research. This is our company, CG Insights, doing the research. And we will make available the study, the Dream Team Effect, for everybody who's listening to this or viewing this. And the second part is, we have the privilege of coaching and training thousands of advisors each year. And we call that applied experience. So we're bringing that together, and we created this model. And this is what we call the Dream Team Framework. It's unlocking exceptional performance in teams. And you'll see is there's 3 key levers here. There's 9 accelerators. There's 3 core goals, excuse me. And then the ultimate outcome. So let me go, I'm going to do it on reverse so I can draw on it. What every team leader, and quite honestly, every team member, wants: unequaled performance certainty. We want stuff to work. At the end of the day, we want stuff to work. So to do that, what we've got to do is start having momentum. We got to have the foundation so everything's working, and we will have to have the results, the outcome, to make this all come. Now, what we found in our research, there were 3 levers. Starting with motivation. The very first thing is we have to move from self-interest. And this is something our industry is really good at. It's very easy to get clear on your own interests. And it's the question on the equity side. One of the things when we ask, a lot of the teammates don't want equity. And it's really interesting. Even in Silicon Valley, I live in Silicon Valley, a lot of people don't believe the equity is going to have value. Now, you and I might have different beliefs, and I can tell you I do. But one of the things we want to get clear what it is they want, and then we can go ahead and we can have what we call the enlightened self-interest, where those 2 circles of self-interest come together. And that will inspire them. It's going to motivate them. And this is the whole team now. Second is engage. We're going to move from being managed to everybody's going to take their own self-responsibility. And then on the execute, our industry is so good at doing what I call strategic stumbling. The industry, you don't have to be really, you can be very talented, and not run a very good business, and you can still make it work. I want it to be seamless. I love having a business where things work, and I get up every morning excited about working. I want every financial advisor, to when they're going to work, that they're excited about the impact that they're going to make. We call it, helping build amazing life significance, that you take care of the people you love, causes you care about, make a difference in the world. You're going to do it for your clients first. And by doing that, this is where capitalism works, Bob. You do it for them, and it's the right clients you're going to be heroes to. Then you go ahead, and not only you, but your teammates, if you structure right, everyone builds an amazing life of significance based on their self-interest. And that's been really powerful. Now, around the edge, and I'll come back to these, are all these accelerators. And these are, when we identify, these are the 9 things that we've seen that top financial advisors that have dream teams put in place to accelerate their success faster and with less effort than they ever thought possible. And have a great quality of life that they love.
So how do folks implement those accelerators?
Well, one of the things, so when we look at this, and I might just go through real quick, and then I'll point out where in the book, but we start with lead. And the whole concept of lead was you got to promote that co-elevation. So you got to have a vision of where you're going and where that person wants to go. And that's enlightened self-interest. And we can co-elevate together. Remember, only 8.1. So if you're not there yet, okay. And, again, this is, the first one here. We got to take care of this, because if we don't do that, nothing else works. And what we find then is the second is promise. And people have to be proud of what they're doing. So they want to get clear on how to deliver exceptional client value. And this is 90% want that. So that's a big one. The third, going around the edge. So these are all part of the motivate, is the concept of developing and facilitating continuous learning. This is for 58%. This is one of, instead of giving equity, if you can show them a clear path to grow on. And, obviously at the Investment and Wealth Institute, you guys do a lot of this as well. This is where real value is created. The third is, Jim Collins calls it getting the right people on the bus. Strategically.
I was gonna ask about Jim Collins because you referred to Good to Great, and it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, it's a great book. And, this whole concept of recruiting, we have a whole model that's very important to us, but 82% of the participants said they're going to be hiring more people this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're going to attract talent, there's got to be, you want to attract the best talent you can that's right for that position. Yeah. Well, this is where if you don't have the first part of the motivation done, it ain't going to work. If you don't have lead, promise, and develop done. Okay. From there, resources. What are the established shared values and objectives? Recognize, how are we going to celebrate contributions? 2/3 link bonuses to revenue. Okay. How are we, what's the right compensation structure? Confidence. How do we equip for effective client service so that, well, this is one of the things that we find the teams that have what we call quiet confidence, they actually know what affluent clients want.
Yeah.
And they have then designed their experience to exactly deliver that. But they've shared the research with the team as well. So people have confidence they can compete with anyone. And that's where it really starts taking off. And then as we go to the last area, which is execute. So, coming back to, we're going to execute here. We're going to move to that seamless. Well, what are we going to have? Well, what's so important is this concept of, equipping, that's having that quiet confidence, cadence, putting the systems in that you can, implement performance structure. And, really the large turnover shows it's not there by the industry. And we've got to have that. There's structure to cadence and then communication. Everybody wants transparent team interaction. Now, one of the reasons why I want to give the book to everyone, and this is where we've gone ahead and we've really given the highlights in each of these accelerators. So we've written out what are the key drivers of success in all 9. So they can, this is why you really want to download this, Bob, is that, I got to tell you, I have worked where going back, this is embarrassing, but when I was an advisor, I have gone ahead. I definitely was part and maybe the main reason for the dysfunctional team. I then was profitable enough that I had only high performance individuals, but I hated my life. We were not aligned. We got here, and that's when I sold the business.
Yeah.
Okay. I have now in both our major businesses, dream teams, co-elevation. And I got to tell you, I wake up, I'm 68, I'm financially independent by a good number. I love my life and I can design it on purpose. And one of the things, financial services industry, and we have the privilege of working with so many advisors, that this is really a big opportunity for them, that there's no heavy lifting. If you want to stick around and, sticking around to a dream team is not that hard to do. And so that's where, that my passion is.
Yeah. Well, I can attest to this fact. The IWI and CEG Worldwide and Insights, we now have this relationship. We could talk more about that. But I have a chance to, on a weekly basis, work with your team And there's no doubt in my mind that it's a dream team. So you are walking the walk for sure.
Yeah, and haven't always done it though. Full disclosure, and I've tried both. I like this a lot better, Bob. And we have the privilege of working with many advisors that are building it. Like the 8.1% is not our clients. We don't serve our clients for the research.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you and I promised to do, and I want to put this slide up. If you're viewing this, you can take a picture of the QR code, or you can go ahead. And I'm going to say it slow for those of you listening. And if you're driving, wait and replay it later type thing, or go to the YouTube because there'll be the link there. But it's www.cegwin, Charlie Echo Golf win.com /IWI -team. And when you do go there, what you're going to find is you'll go ahead to our website and you'll have the ability, just put in your information. I cut a short video. It's about 3 minutes on the Dream Team effect, and walking you through. You can it's totally complimentary, and what the benefits, what you're going to gain. And this is, to us, this is what we talk about. It's empowering your team, elevating your practice, achieving excellence. And one of the most important things from my perspective, Bob, is you get a great quality of life, not only for yourself, but for everyone. And we have really as close to no turnover over the last 20 years. I think if we lose somebody after 8 to 10 years is a shock type thing. And that's because of what we're sharing with you. And we certainly have advisors who are doing the same thing as well.
Yeah. Well, I have to say the one last comment I have is every time you mention the dream team, I'm reminded of the famous Olympic basketball team and how well they did. And so
it's actually our head of coaching and I were brainstorming what would we call it, and Val Cheney said, I think of the Olympic dream team, and we said that's the greatest example out there type thing.
It's the greatest example, except for the Boston Celtics, which just won the world basketball title, has a pretty good dream team too.
Well, and you also see somebody that is a great early leader, rookie, Caitlin Clark. I have not watched any of the women's basketball and WNBA until she came on, and you can see the teamwork coming together for their team. And this is where, if you have the right framing, in their case, a good coach as well, the right talent, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And it's the same whether the Olympic dream team, we can think of many other teams, and everybody probably has been on a team that performed at a high level.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You should make it yours.
Yeah. I mean, I think as I think about it, like, who doesn't aspire to be, part of a dream team? So, if you're not waking up in the morning thinking that's your goal for the day, maybe you ought to be downloading the results of this study and taking
Yeah,
all.
and I'll just put it up one more time.
Yeah.
Go ahead, the QR code. We've got www.cegwin.com /IWI-team. And that's going to go ahead and get you right to this report. And you can go ahead and put your information in, and you'll get a PDF that you can download that will have all the information that Bob and I talked about, and then some. So I wish everybody could have a dream team, Bob, and you know what? They can.
They can. Well, before I close, I want to, obviously thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us, but I also want to remind those who are listening or watching that you'll be speaking at the IWI Strategy Forum taking place between September 30th and October 2nd. And I forget the exact date that you'll be speaking, but maybe you remember.
I don't remember, but I do remember I am going to dive deeper into teams, and I will be hanging out at the conference the whole time. So if you're there, we're going to have an opportunity to have some great conversations. And we have a strategic partnership, as Bob talked about, with the Institute. and we're providing our leading edge research as we go to each of the conferences and sharing it. And so definitely don't miss the conference. There's going to be a lot of great material there from not only us, but other companies as well and other speakers.
Well, John, as I said, I'm much obliged. Thank you for everything today.
Well, thank you for your partnership, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Advisor podcast brought to you by the Investments and Wealth Institute. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe through iTunes, Spotify, or our website at www.investmentsandwealth.org/podcast to get the latest episodes of our Exceptional Advisor podcast series. For additional resources, updates on events, and exclusive membership deals, visit www.investmentsandwealth.org.